Welcome home, family and fellow citizens of the African Order. I'm here with another video, and the topic of this discussion is tradition, present, and future. Now, when I come up with the title to this, what's the difference between tradition and history? How come I didn't call this history, present, and future? And the reason for that is if you have no skin in the game, and you just sit back and observing how things used to be done, how they're done now, and then how they may be done in the future, and you have, like I say, no skin in the game, then that's history, present, and future. But when you have something at stake and you look at the past becomes tradition if you have something at stake. And then you revert to the present, and then you can start to predict the future. So that's my brief explanation of the title. And the reason for this video is I was watching an episode of Gordon Ramsay, and it was a restaurant that was failing, and they were looking for a new head chef. The chef they had previously had gone, but he had left the restaurant with 2 or 3 Michelin stars, and this is one of the highest awards a restaurant can have. And they lost either 1 or 2 of them, so they was down to their last Michelin star. So he desperately wanted somebody to come in and help the restaurant build on its reputation and get back the prestige that it once had. And this guy come strolling in, and Gordon Ramsay asked him, what do you know about the walnut? And he responded, nothing. And he said, you don't know anything about the tradition of the restaurant, the history of it, the Michelin star? And he, no, I'm just here for a job. When I saw that, I didn't even have to wait for Gordon Ramsay to, give his opinion on whether this guy should be hired. I immediately said, this guy, no. You have to at least do some research. If you're in this just for you, then you show up, you don't care about the history of the restaurant. All you looking for is just to line your pocket. I don't care what this place used to be, as long as I get to come here, do what I gotta do, and I can put some money in my pocket. That's all I'm concerned about. And that's the last type of person you want to carry on a tradition that elevated you above your peers. And that is exactly what blacks have done. We have allowed someone to intervene in our lives that don't give a damn about our tradition, what type of people we were, the beauty we had, the unity we had. We allowed people to come in, sever us from our tradition, and just focus on putting money in his pocket. And he didn't care about nothing else. This is why tradition is so much more important than history. Tradition is when you care. Tradition is when you love. Tradition is something that you want to pass on to your future generation, to ensure that your way of life be shared by all. You let somebody in intervene that don't care about that, and this is what you get. But but the thing is, when you see our people in the state that we're in right now, and you see how long we've been in this condition, I find myself just what is it going to take for us to get upset, to change, or to redirect, or to do something different than what we're doing now? If America was a restaurant and I was Gordon Ramsay, and I come from the kitchen and I take all the lies, all the stale food, outdated food, dried, and I poured it all on the table right in front of all the customers. And I explained to them, this is what this owner has been serving you. Would you get upset then? Do I need to show you or tell you what these white devils has been doing to us for 500 years? If I said it in a British accent, would that make the difference? If a restaurant promoted fresh, local, daily cuisine, and I show the customers that this food is old, they don't know where it came from, and they made this stuff weeks ago, would you still keep going back? America promotes itself as number one. We the greatest country on earth. They promote freedom. And then when you look at the education and health, these are some of the primary reasons why you want to come to a country, why you want to move to a specific neighborhood. If you were in a community and you voted as a block, these are the things that you would vote for. Education and health. I want to make sure my children are educated. I want to make sure their health is provided for. America, according to its own statistics, don't worry about the rhetoric that they keep spewing out. According to their own statistics, they're 27th in the world in health and education. Would you move into a neighborhood that promoted that? Would you move your children into a community where education and health care is 27th in the world? Would you move to a community or a country that touts freedom above everything else? And then if I come out in my British voice and show you that America is the number one incarceration country on the planet, would you be upset enough to leave then? But see, the thing is, America and a restaurant is two totally different things. If I displayed these secrets about a restaurant, you could easily leave and go to another. But if I display these things about America, now your choice is a little bit more difficult to make. You can't just up and leave and go to another country. You're going to have to take a stance. You're going to have to do something differently to change the way this country is. And the thing is, you wouldn't keep going back to that same restaurant that's serving you, misserving you. I mean, there's what would make you sicker? You know, knowing you could possibly eat rotten food, or the thought that you have eaten rotten food. I've watched Gordon Ramsay shows, and the food looks good. And if they sauced it right and seasoned it right, it might even taste good. But if I told you after you ate that meal that chicken been sitting in the back next to cooked and raw chicken for the last 3 days, you get just as sick just as fast if you knew the food was spoiled. And you told me I just ate something that's been sitting around for 3, 4. It's disgusting. And this is exactly what this country's been doing, serving you things that you think is this when it's actually detrimental to your health. You know, and these things call for they don't call for change. They demand change. You shouldn't feel sympathy for the person that has the option, the choice to do the right thing and just choose to do the wrong thing just to line his pocket. Regardless, and you would have been profitable either way. If Gordon Ramsay had hired this guy to be the chef, and he cooked to his highest potential, regardless of whether he knew anything about the history of the restaurant or not, the restaurant still would have been successful. But if you put somebody in that place that don't care and just line their pocket, the restaurant will suffer. The people will be separated from their ways. They won't know how to organize, come together. And then you will leave this person in power for as long as they're there. And then when somebody like me come up and say we have to do this and do that to change the course of our people, you don't get mad at the person that's feeding you old and rotten food. You get mad at me for telling you about it. Oh, because now if he buy fresh food, we not gonna be able to afford it now. The price is gonna go up, and now all of a sudden I'm the villain. When I say blacks create their own educational opportunities, they're governing their own people, create their own businesses and industries around their own essential needs. You wouldn't tell, well, you can't really do that now. When whites discriminated against blacks, we didn't like that, so we passed laws to stop that, so it won't be right for us to do to them what they did to us, which is one of the craziest non-thinking things I've ever heard in my life. Because when whites were discriminating against blacks had no alternative. If blacks today created their own schools, their own hospitals, their own banks, their own manufacturing around their food, clothing, housing needs, and said this was for black people only, white people would still have a place to go. 50, 60 years ago, when these Jim Crow laws were in effect, blacks had to go to these places because they had no alternative. So I don't know where all this sympathy come from somebody who has been tilting the scale against your best interest for as long as you've been on this planet. It's not the same. It'll never be the same. Because if we created every institution that we go to now, whites would still have a place to go. This alone should make the relationship between blacks and whites better. Because now we can alleviate the responsibility for whites for providing for us. We can start providing for ourselves. And I don't know what other motivation we would need as a people. All you got to do is look at any statistic that governs the quality of life, and look at how whites are treated, and look how blacks are treated. Blacks can be 15% of the population, but be 60% of the people incarcerated. I don't care. And it's like I'm looking at the statistics in I think it was Massachusetts. 2% of the population, and probably like not even a full 2%. And 30-40% of the people in prison are black. How can 1% of a people be that much of a problem in a whole state? Because everything whites design is designed to be on top of our people. So we're going to suffer the most. Because we have not intervened and got this guy out of this position and restored and carried on the tradition of our people. That's like a father who has a daughter that he's ready to let date and find a husband. And you have a guy show up at your home and he don't care how you raise your daughter. All he's interested in is getting her out this house so he can do to her whatever he want to do. That's not the type of guy you want to take your daughter out of here. When you have a son that you're getting ready that you're trying to raise into a man, and he's ready to go out and find himself a wife, you want your son to be respectful of the child or the female's parents. Be mindful of how they raise their daughter and treat her as the same as she's been accustomed to. You wouldn't allow a man to take your daughter out of here that didn't respect the tradition and the ways that you instilled in your daughter, and you can't send your children out there to take some man's daughter out of his home and treat her any way he wants to. You know, there was an analogy that we had, you know, with Pistons. They was talking about the Pistons and San Antonio Spurs back in 94, whatever it was, when the Pistons and San Antonio Spurs were going at it back and forth in the championship. They were number 1 and number 2 in the league in points scored, 84.5 points a game. Right now, you have teams giving up 60 points at halftime. And so they asked Isaiah, how would y'all defend today Golden State and Steph Curry? Well, Isaiah Thomas said, you know, back in the day when we set up our defense, we waited till the point guard brought the ball over the mid-court line. And the closer he got to the 3-point line, that's when we start setting up our defense. But now when you're dealing with today's NBA, and Steph Curry will pull up at the mid-court line, you have to extend your defense. The further out you start extending your defense, the more problematic you make it for them. You can't allow these people to come into, up underneath the 3-point line and then establish. You got to start picking this up just as soon as they take the ball in. And I say that to say this. If we are going to establish and maintain the defense of way we feel we need to live and protect the way we live, it cannot be just in the home. We got to extend our defensive capabilities to provide for our people and something that we could promote and pass on to our children by starting off in the home, establishing our own governing body, building businesses and industries that we own and control, that extends our capability to defend our way of life. If we just start and reside in the home and just leave it there, every time you go to a job, every time you go to an educational institution, they have control over how you live your life. I'm watching the news the other day, and they was talking about Governor Cuomo, who is under siege now because of his sexual promiscuous, whatever it is, trying to flirt with all these different women. And so one of the reporters was telling the story about how when she was in office and she went to a dinner with her boss and he had put his hand on her knee. A co-worker saw this and reported it to Human Resources. When Human Resources called her in to discuss what happened, she said, the first thing I thought of was, I love my job. So I didn't want to press charges, even though he did put his hand on her knee. She didn't want to press charges because she was fearful of losing her job. But if you had your own businesses and industries and established your own and continued your own morals and ethics, then the people who we are, when we go out, you will be under the protection of these ethics and standards. And you wouldn't have no stranger putting his hand on his knee just because now he know you have no alternative. And if I put my hand on my knee, the last thing you're going to do is quit your job and put an end to your home, put an end to paying for your child's education, put an end to paying your health care, paying your car note, paying your cell phone, just because I put my hand on my knee. And the more you don't resist, the more he's going to impede on your sanctity. And if we continue, or if a restaurant hires somebody who does not respect the tradition of the restaurant, you don't respect the tradition of our people, where is the passion for our people going to come from? Do you think it's going to come from someone who don't give a damn about it, who wants you fractured, and all they want to do is line their pocket? Look at our people now. Look how passionless we are. I can tell you this in the most passionate way I can, that we are getting screwed over and still going to the same businesses and industries and getting the same freaking result, no better treatment. And we could turn this all around right now. We decide to come together and start building our own. And look at us. You'll ignore it and still continue doing it because there's no passion. Where's it going to come from? You know, before I end this video, let me conclude by saying this. A long time ago, they made a movie called The Fifth Element, where Bruce Willis and played a character where they had the four stones, and in the middle of the four stones there was a warning: if evil stood in between the four stones, they would rule forever. Our four stones is our tradition, educating our own, ownership over our businesses and industries, and our destiny, our future. We have allowed evil to come and occupy the fifth element. Our people should be in the center of that. Our passion, our love should be at the center of this. And we have allowed evil, totally opposite of what we are. People that are totally at the opposite spectrum of what we are, to occupy all of our traditions, education, our ownership over our business and ways of life, our governing body, our future, and look at how we are as a people. If we don't get evil out, someone who disregard our history and replace it with someone who was passionate about it, we're going to be this way for the rest of our lives. And that is no exaggeration. I'm going to end this video here, and if you like this message, please like it, share it, and if you like the content, subscribe to the channel. And as with this video, as with all my videos, it is for the complete liberation of my people, and I'll see you in my next message. Ashe.